And we're back with us and my friend here. This is Iron Man. I don't know if you've ever met him. He's awesome. We all love him. We all appreciate him. And that's one of the subjects that I want to talk about tonight, actually, is one of the newly most loved characters in comic books. Because he hasn't always been. But there's a definite reason why he is one of the most loved characters in comics. And I'm going to definitely say, definitively, think of another word that definite fits in. We're going to do that. Robert Downey Jr. made this character who and what he is. He is Iron Man. It's not about who he was before. It's not about who he's going to be after. It's about who he's been during these 10 years. I definitely think. Oh! And who's with the... Oh, no, it's John McClane. This is John McClane.
Not worthy of the...
You're not worthy of the helmet.
The helmets.
Set it down. Be gentle. Be ginger with it.
It did clip my nose coming out.
Yeah, it'll hurt. My nose was too big to put it on. It's okay, I can admit to another man. But yeah, I want to talk about Robert Downey Jr. because he definitely was a character of his own right long before he became Iron Man.
Was he?
If you think about it.
Robert Downey Jr. was a character.
Yeah, think about it. Think about his whole lifespan of all the things that he went through, the hijinks, the parties, waking up in people's pools, and you know.
You know, one of my go-to images of Robert Downey Jr. is in an orange jumpsuit, handcuffed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think about it. I mean, he had a very storied life, I would say, is the way to say it. He's had a storied life. Now, within that, there were definitely his ups and his downs, his Britney Spears moments. But then came along 2008. And when 2008 hit, what do we get? We get to see that this news that, hey, we've picked who's going to play Iron Man. And of course, I know we're being nerdists. We were probably like, okay, cool, Iron Man's coming out. We were a little bit excited about it. It wasn't a huge tidal wave of the industry, though.
It was still post, like, Spider-Man and
Yeah, Spider-Man people were happy about, but Iron Man never was a huge hit.
Yeah.
Like, think about the, even in the 1990s. In the 1990s, they had this thing called the action block that would come on TV. And so they had Fantastic Four, I know Spider-Man and
was that like the
animated X-Men series had they were like leading the charge.
Was there a 3D-ish kind of Galactus in that, or?
Yeah, they had a weird intro. That's Silver Surfer.
Yeah, that's the Silver Surfer cartoon.
Oh, okay, so that's different then.
Well, it spun off.
Yeah, okay.
It spun off from the Fantastic Four. They called it the Action Block, though, and Iron Man was a part of that. And there was a team that he had with him. Now in the comics, weren't they called Force Works?
There's something like that, but like in the comics, it was mainly the West Coast Avengers.
Yeah.
I forgot what they were called in the cartoon, though.
And the cartoon was just kind of like these people that were hanging out with Tony Stark. So you had Spider-Woman showing up. You had this weird necromancer dude. Yeah, who even cares about him? A war machine.
See, I didn't see any of this.
Oh, but it was done in that animated style. That same kind of.
I didn't even think I knew who Iron Man was at that time. I was first introduced to him in like a Spider-Man annual.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
And I kind of like, I mean, I was aware there's a guy in a suit, but I hadn't read anything or.
I've read a lot of the Avengers stuff, so I knew who he was and knew he was a big deal. And one of the cooler things about him, for me during the 90s, was that he had the modular armor, which is what he wore in the animated series. So if at any point in time, and this is reminiscent of what they eventually did in Iron Man 3, if at any point in time he had a situation arise that he couldn't just walk in with his normal Iron Man armor, it's in the bottom of the sea. I've got to go get this glowing jewel thing out of the bottom of the sea. Submarine armor, and like it would fit on top of this modular armor, so it was just plates that would fit on top of the armor. And they had a toy series The
Well, that's
Amazing
perfect
Toy
for
Series.
toys.
I loved it. I had all the Iron Man that you could put all the pieces on and swip.
Well,
and
yeah,
swap
they could
the
just
pieces.
sell you Iron Man like 10 times over.
Yeah.
It's a different suit.
Oh yeah, different colors.
Yeah, that's like when they
This
got-
is teal. This
Isn't that
is
what
teal
the-
and white. It's different than the yellow and red.
Yeah, my favorite
I sold it to my mom every time.
of the toys from that was of course I like the War Machine and stuff like that, but was the Samurai Armor Iron Man.
Yes.
Where he
You
was,
check it out. Samurai.
It's,
Shogun.
it was silver and it was green.
Yeah.
It had the blades right here on his
Yeah.
face. That was so cool.
The only thing that ever came close to touching that figure series for me was when McFarlane eventually came up with his own series. And so
Yeah.
you had Spawn this and Spawn Samurai and Spawn Ninja
Yeah.
and Techno Spawn. And so there's all the different kinds, but Iron Man was
Spawn.
the original person that could be anything he needed to be. Like, to me, he beat Batman out. And this was when I was young, man. Like, 1989, there was nothing but Batman.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I believe that I wanted to grow up and become Batman. When my parents said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" Little 5-year-old Tony. And 5-year-old Tony would look at him and say,
Rich vigilante.
"Yeah, I want to be." I didn't even know. Like, him being a billionaire didn't even click in my head that
I
was.
mean, you kind of need to be a billionaire.
You do?
to
And
be
I get that now.
Yeah.
But at the time, didn't register that it was that important of the part. Working out a lot, kicking people in the face.
See, that's what didn't register to me.
Oh,
Was
so
the
you wanted
working
to
out
be rich?
No, I was into the mechanical toys. It's
Yeah.
like, well, if I could just build these kind of toys, then I could be a Batman. So I'd have little sketches of how they worked.
Oh yeah, me and my
Yeah.
cousin Dan used to do that. We would draw cars that could shoot missiles and had Gatling guns that came out of the headlamps and stuff.
That's one of the
We were
things that kept me
convinced
going.
that's all we needed to do, and he was always going to be my guy in the chair.
Yeah,
That was
it didn't even occur to me to think about how I was going to pay for all of it.
See,
Or
I
the fact that, like, I guess I just assumed I didn't need muscles because I'd have a suit, and the suit would
the
do
suit would
everything.
compensate.
Yeah.
And
It would have
that's
lifting ability.
when you become a supervillain, that's how you get your money.
Yes. Yes. You don't even have to be a supervillain. You just have to be an anti-hero. So instead of giving the money that you take from the drug dealers over to the cops for proper confiscation, you keep their money because it's not wrong to steal from thieves, right?
I think it's still wrong.
Oh, is it?
I mean,
But what if I wanted more than them?
like, did the thing you're stealing from the thief, did they steal it?
They
Or-
stole it.
Is that wrong? We need to get a lawyer.
We need to call lawyer Bill that shows up on 98.1.
Like, say, basically, if you
I want him
steal
to be on our
something,
show.
is it wrong for me to steal that from you? Actually, no.
Isn't that reappropriating?
Well, it is still stealing because I might as well be stealing from the original guy.
And if you steal,
Like, if I don't give it back to him, then I'm stealing it from him.
well, I think it's neither here nor there. The point
It's still
is
stealing.
that in 1989, 90, 91, Batman was legitimately all I wanted to be. I would lift my mother's couch so I could start working with weights, because she was like, "You're 5, you're not allowed to use
That didn't
weights."
work out.
So I'd take the couch and I'd do curls with it. I'd jump from one to the other. I'd practice doing pull-ups off of the balcony. I hope Mom's not watching this, so she doesn't know that. It's still too soon. But things like that. I was convinced that I was going to be Batman. And then I saw this Iron Man that could like have anything he needed at any moment.
Now, did you make the connection of
That they were both
Bill-
billionaires?
billionaire at that point?
No,
Yeah.
still no. I just knew that this was the first one I ever saw with facial hair, and I was like, oh, he's awesome. He kind of looked like my dad at the time. My dad would always show up to pick me up on our weekends. He had this motorcycle. Brown leather jacket, blue jeans, brown cowboy boots, the old mustache, nothing else, because he was, enlisted, so he had everything shaved with just the mustache. Take the helmet off, shows up. It's time to go to Taco Bell, son. Blockbuster. And I'd hop on the back of the bike like, we're the coolest people ever. So seeing a character actually have the mustache and kind of look like my dad, I was like, this guy now rocks. And like,
But
even
see,
as
he
a kid,
didn't-
I would draw
He
goatees on
wasn't
stuff.
muscle. He wasn't like the workout guy.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah.
He wasn't. But
He was
there's
just the brand.
There's
Okay.
definitely the moments where you see Steve Rogers in the comic books or in the movies that they try to, broach the fact that Steve Rogers is a workout guy. and he cares about Tony. So he's like, "Come on, Tony, we have to go work out." And Tony's like, "Beep beep," and
get that heart in shape.
Steve's like, "Whoa, language," you know.
Yeah, I was never aware of their relationship in the comics. How's it different from the on-screen?
I don't think it is that different.
Really?
I don't really think so.
No, I mean, I was even like reading like some of the previews from upcoming comics and stuff like that. They still have the same, camaraderie. I mean, the script's going to be a little bit different because it's different writers. And especially with Thor, he still speaks in Old English and the newer stuff. And
He does, but if you notice that the Thor of the comics, again, this is one of those art reflecting art. Thor from the new comics tends to reflect Chris Hemsworth.
yeah,
And how Chris Hemsworth
they
uses
they kind of do that ever since Marvel got in with this cinematic success. They've been kind of going back and forth. They will create and change comics with the idea of where they want to go cinematically.
But I think that they've really honed down how they're doing it. Okay, because for me, originally there was an old comic that Iron Man had. This was when Iron Man became big. And it was just before 2008. It was just before the movie was going to be released. I think they were still talking about Justin Timberlake being Tony Stark. Like, that's how long ago this was. They were throwing out names. Just names. Yeah, Justin Timberlake was one of the names in the
I
air.
remember Tom Cruise being attached to it.
Tom Cruise,
yeah,
different
he
people.
was attached to it in the
And
90s.
I'm so happy he wasn't eventually.
Nicolas Cage could have been Cap.
Nicolas Cage.
Could have been who?
Cap. Oh my God.
Captain America? Could he have been? Nicolas Cage, I want to tell you something right now, just because I know you're watching.
I'd pay to see that.
I love you. I do. You're amazing.
You see Mandy.
I love his kids. The fact that he named his kid Kal-El is amazing. The fact that his name is Nicolas Cage when it's Nicholas Ford Coppola, because he's Francis Ford Coppola's nephew.
Distance himself.
He wanted to distance himself, so he went with a stage name. Where did he pick it from? Luke Cage. He was like, that's a cool
he's
name.
been a big comic book
He's a
fan.
huge comic book fan, and he made it, and he's cool, and he's got a very unique style that's just him. And had he been Superman and Superman Lives,
That would have been intriguing.
it would have been intriguing. It would have been very Burton.
Yeah.
Somewhat intriguing. I feel like Nicolas Cage really honed and found his role within Johnny Blaze. Being the Ghost Rider, that's what he was into.
See, I was about to think, trying to think of someone like I got to choose who Nick could play in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Ghost Rider.
What about DC? Because you say yourself that he has a very specific kind of.
If he didn't need to be British, I would put him as John Constantine.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have him play British. Just Nick be Nick.
Yeah, because Nick is Nick. Like, there is no way that Nick can be really anything other than Nicolas Cage. He can focus his frenzy a little bit one way, or his.
You can push him in different directions. Have you
But
seen
most of the time,
Adaptation?
it's him.
Adaptation is a fantastic film by Spike Jones. Anyway, it's got Nicolas Cage in it. He's fantastic.
He's good at this, man. He's like, ooh, and I get stuck in his head for a minute. Like, oh, we're on tumble cycle.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Anyway,
What I was saying was,
well, Constantine's coming up again, right? I'm diverging. And guess who's
You're
playing?
diverging.
Guess who's playing him?
Nick Cage.
Oh,
Well, I'm sad now. Nick Cage, you should.
oh, who do you think? Who's hot right now?
Keanu Reeves.
Keanu Reeves is
Well, he's already
reprising
been
his
Constantine.
role. He's reprising his role as Constantine. That's the word on the street.
But see, now if he goes into Marvel,
He can do both. He's Keanu Reeves.
He is Keanu Reeves. He could have killed Thanos with the pencil, right?
Yeah.
With
With a pencil. Yes. That was a pregnant pause that you gave right there. I appreciate that. But not, honestly, there was an artist that came along in the early 2000s that changed Iron Man as far as the comic books are concerned. Yeah, that's what we were doing. Oh.
Nicolas Cage's Iron Man would be good.
I don't agree. I don't really agree. I feel like
It'd be interesting.
he would have been a cool Justin Hammer to be versus Tony Stark. had it not been Sam Rockwell, who did a great job. He did a great job.
Yeah, he did.
I feel sorry that he didn't.
Have you
come
seen
on
his
yet.
movie Moon? It's fantastic.
It is.
He's
fantastic.
also,
I haven't.
you should see it, it's hard sci-fi, it's great. Also, he is in Galaxy Quest, which is also fantastic for different reasons.
That was a good movie.
Yes.
The one with Tim
It
Allen.
was perfectly paced.
I loved it.
Perfectly
It was great.
paced.
And with the late Alan Rickman.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, one of his,
Oh, really?
yeah.
Huh. Anywho,
Iron Man.
Iron Man had a story come out called Extremis in the 2000s. And there was an artist named Adi Granoff that did the artwork from cover to back. I mean, he did everything in it. It's very well painted.
That was painted.
Oh yes, he is an artist extraordinaire. Like his work with color, glare, shadows.
This is like pre-digital era.
And I think that now they have him use some of the digital work because he did a lot of the initial framework for building the look of Iron Man that we eventually got to see in 2008.
And I love the way they translated it on the screen.
How did you feel? How did you feel when you first saw? This will be what I want to start probably trying to laser focus you and get you into. So I'm going to start over here with sex appeal, the bearded man. How did you feel when you saw the first movie, when he first comes out of the cave and you see the full Mark I cast iron Iron Man armor?
I feel?
Like the blowtorch, everything's
You want to
going.
talk about my feelings?
I want you to at least emote what you thought when you saw it. Did you like the appeal of it, the gritty realism
I liked
of
it. Oh yeah, I like the gritty realism of it. Yeah, it was fantastic. I liked how weak it was and how strong it was.
Yeah,
I liked that it fell apart. It got the job done.
I got the job done, then it was over.
But in of itself, it was a huge leap in technology for Tony, and it only happened due to the adversity of the situation.
True.
Uh,
And I like that you put it that way. And I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to take a pin, I'm going to stick it in that, and I'm going to come back and unpin that. How did you feel when he first came out of the cave?
I was undoubtedly happy. Because, I mean, it's this character who I grew to love from the Captain America and the Avengers arcade game of old. Also Sega Genesis.
Way before Marvel vs. Capcom, too.
Way before, yeah. But I mean, I've always liked the character. But just seeing him come out, it was great to see them pay homage to the first appearance of Iron Man. It tells the suspense. It's like you see him come out with the silver armor, you know, like just blasting away at terrorists and stuff. But yet it looked like it, but it looked like a more realistic version of it.
It had the spirit
Yeah.
of the original artwork, but it had this very neat design quality to it. Because one of the things, like even if a person's just going to wear pants, what are they going to do? They're going to put some sort of stitching in it, some lines in it, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, armor is kind of a fascinating thing to work with because you can put so many different panels or the welding points that they had on that armor.
That was really cool.
Really good for the artistic appeal. But I'm going to unpin this real quick. Now, I wanted to talk about the fact that they showed this adversity on this character, and that's how he reinvented himself. Because again, like I said at the beginning, Robert Downey Jr. had all this adversity for himself. And I feel like watching the movie, because my mom used to love Robert Downey Jr. She watched him on, there was this show on TV with Callista Flockhart where they were all lawyers. It was kind of funny.
All right, hold on, I got this.
We know that was
Ally McBeal.
Ally McBeal.
Ally McBeal,
And
yeah.
he was one of her love interests on it. She
Oh, really? She
loved-
was on that
oh
show?
yeah. Oh,
I had no idea.
Before
I had no idea.
before John Bon Jovi was her love interest, there was Robert Downey Jr. He did episodes where he would sing, play piano. It was amazing. And Mom would always call me in and be like, check out this guy. And I'm like, I've seen him in stuff like Weird Science, you know. As a kid, he was the
Oh,
bully
yeah.
in Weird Science. So I was like, I know who he is. But, yeah, he's the Ally
I've
McBeal
seen
love
this.
interest, and he did a great job.
Let's look at
But
this.
that was my knowledge of him. Of course, what
There he
happens? He had a little bit of a roller coaster moment and
Larry.
fell off
His name
the
was
show.
Larry.
But he fell off the show because
He's exactly the same.
he had a personal moment. He had a little dip in his career at that moment because he was going through some stuff. So for me, when you see this character, Tony Stark at the beginning of the movie, I'm seeing Robert Downey Jr., the drinking, the fun guy, all that stuff. That's who he is. He brings it to the role.
I wonder if he was cast, if it had anything to do with
I think that he was born to play that role, and it just so happened. Like John Favreau talked about it before, and he was like, Tony Stark is Robert Downey Jr. Robert Downey Jr. is Tony Stark. There is no breaking or bending that. It's
like instead of engineering,
leaves.
it's acting.
Yeah, it's acting, but I mean,
Like he had this potential, but then he kind of floundered his talents with.
and he's the son of somebody who was also well renowned
and then
appreciated in
through
his field.
adversity, like he found his.
And then when he comes out, so when he's sitting there, when he's slamming the mallet against the mask and he's making everything, and again when they played that towards the end of our 10-year experience with him, that to me is the moment where he became Iron Man. So when he steps out of that cave and he starts blasting away, fire that way, launch this missile over at you, that's the moment when Robert Downey Jr. truly came into his own. That's when he let us know that he was about to carry the weight of this new thing that we were about to all fall in love
he was
with.
carrying too.
It was.
It's iron.
Well, there's that too. Yeah, it was literally a heavy weight. But for him taking on the load of this MCU business right from the get-go, and then how much work he did in talking to the actors, getting people to sign on, getting people to stay on, making sure that things were staying on track. He was very involved, like almost as involved as Kevin Feige is. I mean,
I have no idea how much he's involved.
He's a
But
big
he has. I mean, he's had influence since Iron Man because he was able to get in his contract like that. What was it? 2%, like of everything that was made. Iron Man, right? Something like that. It was some like fraction of the profit.
Goes to what?
Yeah, to his pocket.
To his pocket?
Yeah.
Well, have you seen some of the things that he's done with his
how much
pocket?
money he made?
Oh, he's good. He's
Or
wealthy.
just
He
Infinity War.
actually probably has Iron Man.
He must. Actually, I'm sure he does.
He built it.
Yeah.
Like he was like, go ahead, build me one. I would have had all of them made.
But I think
for
it was
me
like,
and set there.
For just Infinity War, the one movie was like $70 million.
Right. So 2% of that.
No, he got 2% of like I guess the gross profit or the net profit of Infinity War, which was $1 billion plus.
Hey, you know what?
So he gets a tiny fraction of $1 billion, and so $1 billion's like 1,000 million. So he gets like a large.
You're confusing me with numbers.
Okay.
Just throwing me off.
Anyway,
track
like he's the
completely.
highest paid actor in history.
Now,
Yeah, right now.
because of that day that he came out of the cave.
Because of the day he
That's
came
what
out
I'm
of the
saying.
cave.
Because of when he became Iron Man. Now, for me, one of the biggest moments too of that whole movie, because you see him come home, does all the test work with the armor and everything, and of course the funny scenes where he flies into the wall and the robot arm is going to spray him with the fire extinguisher every single time.
I do like their patience with Iron Man. They don't just make him able to do everything. He's always kind of experimenting.
He's growing and
Yeah.
adapting.
And the character has been growing and adapting this whole time.
Right, because if you think about it,
He's got a huge arc over 10 years.
huge stories.
Yeah.
Every time that you think something was like resolved, so even when you're sitting there and you think to yourself, well, Iron Man. So by the end of it, well, he accepts who he is. That's kind of like a mini arc.
Yeah.
You know, he has a huge little mini arc in that first movie. Well, but then let's think
He
about
accepts responsibility,
yeah.
for like, being a part of, making weapons that are killing innocent people.
Yeah.
We have
We have a question.
No, you were talking about how much Robert Downey Jr. made.
Oh yeah.
For the first Iron Man, it was $500,000. For pay was.
Now that makes sense.
I'm not going to read this whole paragraph, but for Avengers Endgame, he made $75 million.
$75 million.
So, looks like it was kind of a
Now, if
steady
he's
budget
invested and has a good profile,
there. He took a little bit of a pay cut for Spider-Man Homecoming, only made $10 million for his.
For his like 3 minutes.
yeah, I mean,
Was headshot
Only.
really?
Yeah.
How much
Yeah,
moments?
He had like,
He had
he
moments.
just went into the studio for one day for that.
He could have
Come on, easily.
easily. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, that's
Gwyneth
the goal.
Paltrow doesn't even remember working on that movie.
Was she in that movie?
Yeah.
Oh, at the end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, she met Tom Holland. And
That's
Tom
when she
Holland
came back.
was-
I thought she was gone forever, like she wasn't going to show. And I'm so happy she came back because
Me
Gwyneth
too.
Paltrow is as big a part of it as Robert Downey Jr. for me. She's his Pepper
Absolutely.
Potts. That's his heart. That's his soul.
Yeah, I
She's
like
the
her.
proof that he has a heart.
I like her.
I love her.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I'm not saying like, oh, I've always been just in love with Gwyneth Paltrow. It's just like the Pepper Potts role, what that balances for the character of the Tony Stark role. Being a little bit of a braggadocious person myself, and a Tony, it's like, when do I get to meet my own Virginia Pepper Potts? And I think I
Yeah, you're
have
right.
in my own life.
That's
I think I have somebody that
Okay.
balances me pretty well. She's very calm, demure, emotional. I'm loud. Got a lot of bravado. There's balance there for me. But I had to have her towards the end of the whole 10-year experience. To have Pepper Potts come back, to have her show up as in the rescue armor, there's nothing better than that.
Dude, that was so cool. I was geeking out when she came out in the rescue armor. I was like, finally.
Super geek mode, right?
Yeah, I know. It's because like at the Iron Man 3 when she had like the nanites and stuff like that.
Yeah, and she just put on the I like when she put on the one arm and did like
Mhm.
the cool battle scene at the end, kicked the crud out of the bad guy.
Yeah.
Basically won the day.
Yeah.
You know, she
That was
does.
very neat. But her full evolution in rescue, that was quite
Dude, I know.
cool. And speaking of armors,
So is she going to continue in that role?
I don't think so. I think
Probably not.
I honestly believe that she'll continue to be mentioned, but I think that an adult Morgan Stark wearing that armor, calling herself Ironheart, is more likely going to be the result.
That's a ways off. So.
It could be, or
Unless
it
they
couldn't
flash
be.
forward.
I mean, obviously we've played with time.
Yeah.
They're already in our future when they've existed in our current for almost 10 years.
What are the new movies
They're in
scheduled?
2025.
Yeah.
Oh no, the new movies we're
Yeah.
scheduled a year out now.
Next year.
Next year.
It's
Yeah.
going to be Black Widow in
We're
May.
right back on track.
And then Eternals, I believe, is in
Oh
November.
yeah. Who's in that?
I believe that they've mentioned Keanu Reeves might be rumored to be in it.
Keanu Reeves is in that, and he's going to be John Connor.
Angelina Jolie's in
And-
it.
And John Wick,
And he's
the Silver Surfer in my mind.
that and Bill and Ted.
Yeah,
Three.
no, Keanu Reeves really does need to be the Silver Surfer. though.
I mean, he
Yeah.
was
And Lawrence
perfect.
Fishburne really needs to be Galactus.
Galactus. Oh,
There's
my
no
God.
way around that. And whoever doesn't get that done is failing us. But speaking of armors of Iron Man and how much we really enjoy the different armors that he gets to wear in each mode of each movie, and you know, generally beginning they had 3 armors per movie, and then of course we got Iron Man 3 with like 300 armors that showed up. As a kid growing up, I know that you're a huge fan, and like you mentioned before that you were a big fan of him. What was one of your favorite armors that they ever had in the runs? The comics or the cartoon or the movies?
And one of my favorites had to be the Silver Centurion armor.
Yeah,
One that's silver and red.
definitely.
It's just one of the striking images to me. I mean, I have the Toy Biz figure still.
The
Hasbro,
jetpack.
yeah, Hasbro, where is it?
Hasbro really does need to step on some of their
Yeah.
Iron Man stuff.
Definitely, it's like we need to see more of the suits. Like maybe release like a 3-pack or something, like a Hall of Armor.
Now, how did you feel about the Silver Centurion when you saw him in Iron Man 3?
I thought that
It was
was
fleeting. but-
yeah. I thought it was great that they did a homage to that because they were originally calling the I think it was the Mark V suit.
Oh, the suitcase armor.
Yeah, suitcase armor was more like the Silver Centurion at
Right.
first, and I was like, "This is so cool." And then Iron Man 3 comes out, and it's like, "Oh no, this is a
That's
Silver
legitimate. That was legitimate.
I was like, "Oh my god!" It was
But I
so
do
cool.
dig the suitcase armor because
Me too.
honestly, that's the 1990s. Again, talking about that animated series, he would open up the briefcase, put on the armor, and it would just like all work together and everything. Which of course was a throwback to the original comic books. He would carry around the armor plating
Mhm.
and have to put it on. But
I remember he had like breastplate.
well, the
He actually had
breastplate
the-
was always on.
He had like a suitcase. Like it was
Yeah.
like a regular looking suitcase.
Regular briefcase.
You open
Yeah.
it up and here's just the different plates and stuff. It's
Yeah.
kind of silly when you think about it.
And then it would just like connect together or whatever.
It's like, he didn't take him a second. Hold on, villain. You know, I gotta put my armor on.
They actually bring that up in Extremis, that comic I was talking about. That was one of the biggest things. He was like, I do need like 30 minutes to train. So
I mean, it's like you go
there's prep time.
cosplay, like at San Diego Comic Con. You're in full Iron Man armor. Do you know how long it takes to get in one of those suits?
I always kind of wondered because I took a picture with
It's
a
gonna
guy
take at
that
least
actually
30
had the whole
minutes.
thing on, and I was like, how long does it take you to whiz?
So I assume they have a hatch,
I kind of assumed he just had a
or they have like a
a
little
bag, colostomy bag or
Yeah.
something.
No,
Like
that's, no.
Oh,
you
can you
just-
imagine that popping at the con?
Yeah,
Yeah, you just
awesome.
went.
that. I mean, hey, Iron Man 2, where do you go? I go in the suit.
You just have a catheter running to
Yeah.
like the back, so
And through a purifier, I could drink this.
it'd be like, ooh, it's like
What's
a
this, dude?
still suit,
I could be stuck in the desert for days. I'm fine.
Iron Man still suit.
Yeah.
I can see it. But yeah, there's a YouTube channel I follow, Corridor Crew. They're blowing up right now, but
Yeah.
they had a short little video of a guy like order his Iron Man armor and try it on. It took him like 30 minutes to get into it.
It takes time.
It's like it looked all right, but it didn't look perfect. Like,
Right.
I don't know how they did it.
Duct tape.
Duct tape.
Colored duct tape. If you give me red duct tape, I can make Iron Man armor. Pretty sure.
Challenge accepted.
Challenge accepted. Now,
I think they 3D printed.
how did you feel about some of the certain armors? Was there a favorite that you had from watching the movies, artistically speaking?
I
or-
want to say I'm a big fan of kind of the like original look,
Right.
like the gold and red. And so in the last movie,
In-game look.
it made an appearance, and that's is a movie version of that.
Right.
But that's what I liked. I liked it. I will say when you guys were talking about all the iron suits in Iron Man 3, I was devastated when he destroyed them all. Like,
Yeah.
that hurt me.
Oh,
Yeah, that's,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
that's like telling your girlfriend, like, I love you, I'm going to get married to you, I'll get rid of my toy collection.
I don't know. It was.
Don't
but,
ever
yeah,
ask
that-
me to do that, Pepper. I've got to say, though, for me, biggest moment of all time, whether I was watching the animated series, or I was watching the movies, or if I had to go out and get the collectible for it, which I will never destroy for anyone, Hulkbuster.
Okay.
The Hulkbuster armor is just the epitome of awesome.
Dude.
It's huge, it's
Yeah.
imposing, it's got different facets to it that can all work, and it's designed to go against the strongest one there is and beat him. So then, therefore, doesn't that mean that Tony's brain is the strongest one there is?
It's the biggest muscle.
It's the biggest muscle. He beat Bruce Banner into submission even in his full green rage state.
You know, there's a video online where Thor conflates muscles with brains. And he's
Oh,
like,
I love that,
brain,
yeah.
brain.
I've got more brains than you do, they're all muscles.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when he was living with his roommate in Australia
I
or
don't,
something,
I don't
right?
know. It was funny.
It was hilarious getting ready for Thor Ragnarok to come out when they did that.
It was a perfect setup to that movie.
But definitely in Age of Ultron, when you see Iron Man land and he knows that Hulk's going crazy, he knows he's got to ground everything, and he's just like, all right, do it. Send me in, what do they call her, Veronica? Because the two
Yes.
weaknesses that Bruce Banner has is Betty and Veronica. It's an Archie and Jughead reference.
Oh,
Mhm.
Yeah.
So-
Because there's Betty Ross, his girl that
Yeah.
he was always in love with, and then he helped build Veronica, which would be the second weakness,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is
yeah.
Hulkbuster coming out. And so as all these armor plates are smacking on and forming, and then all of a sudden you see like the Iron Man head get armored again, and it was like, oh That's so cool.
Did they ever mention
that was
Betty
amazing.
at all?
No, because we don't need to. Not even her father, who's in the movies
Yeah,
too,
yeah,
mentions her. I think she just ran away and joined the circus.
Dude, yeah, that's really weird that they did that.
Yeah, I don't know why.
I don't either. That's.
But then they gave us the Black Widow Hulk relationship, so we got over it.
I guess that's why they did that.
We just kind of got over Betty not being there.
Well, I think people just.
We have to cast her, and then we have to give her a reason to be there.
I wanted to see more Liv Tyler as Betty, though.
I think a lot of people who
I
watch
wanted to see Doc
these
Samson
movies-
become Doc Samson.
don't
Well, we
care.
don't even have Doc Samson.
I think that they see the Hulk, the Marvel Cinematic Hulk, and they don't even think Betty.
Yeah, they don't even think about her.
They don't even think about those other two.
I think
movies.
most people
Yeah.
now, your avid moviegoers, obviously start to think, Hulk, oh, he's in the Black Widow.
Yeah, that's what
They don't think about anything.
Is that at all in the comic book? At all? Yeah,
No, it was always Betty.
yeah.
I saw you do a quick run through all of your comic knowledge.
Yeah, I went back through all the series. I was trying to think of all the ones that they've done. I mean, there was this one girl who was the ex-wife of Emil Blonsky. He dated her during this series, where as it began, he's like memory wiped. He's on the run. It's a really good series. I'm trying to think what it was originally called. It ended in Big Time. I remember that, and that's when Iron Man had to take Hulk down. And it was right before it led into Planet Hulk, where they had to launch him off the planet. And
The Illuminati.
right, but so it was right before
That's
that.
when he had a different look.
It was a
interest.
great
They
run.
can't do that now.
But Betty was a big deal in it, and this girl who was the former wife of Emil Blonsky, but you don't know that. You just know that she's seducing Bruce Banner the whole time. And then all of a sudden, her abusive ex-husband shows up, and he's a big green lizard guy, the Abomination, and so then he starts smashing things around, smacking her around, and then Bruce Banner shows up. Bruce Banner
yeah.
shows up. He says, I'm going to have to ask you to clean up your mess. And this big monster turns around looking at this little skinny guy, and he's like, he goes to hit him, and his fist stops against Bruce Banner's face, eyes glowing green. He's like, oh, I've learned how to control it since then. And then he goes into a full Hulk punch.
Oh.
It was one of the coolest comics I've ever read. That was back in like 03, but whatevs. That was great. But Betty was a big deal. She doesn't matter in the movies, though.
At all.
Obviously, the Abomination didn't matter too much in the movies either, other than the fact that we got to see the
Wait,
Hulk
that one's
stomp.
not even like canon, is it?
It is canon.
It is.
Okay,
The
that one,
Incredible Hulk is canon.
but the one before it isn't.
No.
The Hulk, the Ang
No.
Lee
Or
Hulk,
Hulk.
doesn't count.
No, it does not
No.
count. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Hulk does not
No.
count.
That
Yeah.
would be-
There are, obviously you can get on YouTube and find people who are going to argue against my point and Ronnie's point that that Hulk does not count. They'll try to tell you that it does matter, but no. The wacky inflatable Hulk does not count. It doesn't count, it never will count. Did you see Robert Downey Jr. at the end of that movie? No, you didn't.
Wait, is he in The Incredible Hulk?
Yeah, he shows up at the end and talks to Thunderbolt Ross. He's like, we got this thing going on.
Ah, he did, didn't he?
Yeah.
Wow.
He's the connective tissue. Everybody says it's Nick Fury. But to me, I think Iron Man really is the connective tissue of everything. Well, it's like, oh, well, Nick Fury showed up to tell Iron Man what was going on.
Well, he got the ball rolling.
Oh, sure. But guess who else was in Iron Man's movie? Iron Man. That's the connective tissue. It's Tony Stark. It's RDJ.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I don't know if you had ever heard of this, but it was a few years back. There was this kid, and I don't remember specifically in the story if the kid was born with a defect, the arm wouldn't mature or grow correctly, or if it was an accident that had his arm amputated. But this kid's waiting for a bionic arm. Like, so they've got this arm they can attach to him, and he can control it. With, I don't know if it's like a scientist figure.
There's lots of different ways you could do this. I could run down them all for you.
No, whoever it was that did it, he was a real doctor, and he figured it out.
Okay. 'Cause
So
you could do it
I'm
like-
okay with that. The muscle sensors
Yeah,
or
you
a
can
brain
fu-
chip,
yeah,
I don't
brain
know.
You have to do brain
But he's getting his arm that day. So, of course, kid's sitting there
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he's just got little.
Yeah, he knows he's getting it on.
He knows he's getting on. And then Robert Downey Jr. comes in the room and sits next to him. He says, "You know who I am?" He's like, "Yeah, you're Robert Downey Jr." He's like, "Oh, you really know who I am?" Oh, that's pretty
Yeah.
funny. But he's going for the whole Tony Stark thing.
Yeah.
And so then
How old is this kid?
this kid's like 10,
Okay.
10 or 11, I would say. He's in that age frame. But they bring in this suitcase, like one of the actual like military grade. I've got something cool inside this case.
You
It
open
says
up and,
Stark
like, Smoke
Industries
comes out.
on the top of it, and then as they open it, it's an Iron Man arm. So his bionic arm was an Iron Man arm that got given to him by Robert Downey
By
Jr.
Iron Man.
by Iron
That's
Man.
so cool.
So freaking cool! I was ready to chop off my own arm that day. But I don't think my GoFundMe account on giving me a new arm would ever give me enough
You gotta
money.
do Indiegogo.
Is that how I...
Well, like if you don't meet your goal, you still get to keep that money.
Right.
So, but
I just
on-
don't
on
think that anybody
Kickstarter,
would
you don't.
really contribute much. Well, maybe there are sick people out there that would contribute money just to see me cut my own arm
Yeah, I'm
off.
sure.
Oh,
like a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Oh
but
yeah.
other
They
than
actually
that,
see Kickstarter would take that stuff down. Indiegogo would probably keep that up and egg you on.
yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, oh yeah, cut your arm off,
That's
dude.
our model.
Do it.
We make money too.
My ex-wife probably would like donate tons of money. She's like, he's been talking about this for years. I might as well see
Just-
him finally do it.
You want to cut
No,
below?
here.
No, you need
Yeah,
an elbow.
no,
Okay,
I don't, no. I'm arm. And then if I make a phone call, I want to be able to do this, and it's a working phone. And if I go to do this, watch out,
Yeah.
because that you don't want
Or
that.
this.
Well, I could do that, but I mean, I just think hand symbols are funnier.
Okay.
And if I say I love you, PG-13. Anyway, I'm not going to go 1980s PG-13 on you. But relatively speaking, I really do think out of the whole series, out of what Iron Man is, what he's evolved into, even from, and this is for the true believers out there, when Stan Lee invented the idea of Iron Man, he'd actually done so with a challenge to himself. He said, and that you got to remember, this is during the 70s, 60s and 70s when they got this character to come out, a billionaire weapons designer in the middle of like hippie
Oh, yeah.
age. Yeah. Stan Lee challenged himself. He said he wanted to make a character that everybody should hate,
Should hate.
but love. So, like, he wanted to write it so well and make it so good that everybody loved him. Even all the hippies were like, I totally dig this billionaire business dude that's killing everybody with his weapons. They loved it. Everybody loved it. So, for those true believers out there, that's your little tidbit of fact, is that Stan Lee designed Robert
He designed
He designed Robert
Downey
Downey Jr. He designed Iron Man. He designed Tony Stark to be hated, and then figure out a way through story to make people love him.
Well, that's why he's so like real and endearing.
That's why he's so faulted.
Yeah.
Almost all these other heroes have like minimal faults.
Captain America.
Captain America has. I mean, he's got like a tragic story, but other than
Yeah.
that, where's his
And then there's
fault?
some unrelatable faults.
Superman, what's his fault?
Like, yeah.
Kryptonite.
Bruce Banner's.
Kryptonite. That's it. That's all he's got. It's not a personality flaw.
Yeah.
You don't see Superman like, oh, Lois is really giving me a headache today. I'm going to drink this.
He's not
out."
doing it to himself. Tony Stark was doing it to himself.
He's his own inner demon.
Yeah.
He's his own demon in a bottle. Read that one. You'd love that
Very
one.
good.
But through all of those things, and that's what he obviously Robert Downey Jr. became Iron Man in my opinion. Getting
Well,
him
he was
swapped up.
designed
He was
by
designed by
Stan
Stan
Lee,
Lee
yeah.
and Walt Disney. Stan Lee and Walt Disney actually got together. They were going to do this merger years and years ago, but they decided to wait until after they were both out of the way. Like they wanted to step off the stage so that nobody thought they had manipulated the whole thing to take over the world. I'm going to stop because there's actually probably conspiracy theorists out there right now that's like, oh, he figured it out.
Yeah, we can get shot.
Yeah. So, I'm going to need you to keep your eye on him for me. I don't want to get shanked.
Awesome.
You see what I did
Yeah,
there? Yeah. But Robert Downey Jr. truly became Iron Man. He truly made this whole thing what it is. And in all of these years that we've had, what I think I've picked up the most from it, even from the moment in Infinity War where you see him going up against Thanos and he's wounded, and at the end of it when he's sitting there and he's contemplating the loss, you know, so he's on the planet Titan and he's sitting there and he's holding his face and he's contemplating the loss, and you're supposed to know that he's mortally wounded and there's not a whole lot to do about it. He's stuck in the middle of nowhere. They've lost. The Avengers are done, right? All the way through that, and then even into Endgame, when you get the full culmination of 10 years of story arcs, and like you said, a huge overarching, full of mini story arcs for this one character. But for me, in that moment when Thanos thinks he's won, he thinks he's got the whole gauntlet again. And then right after Doctor Strange holds up that one finger, right before him, you see Tony sitting there, and he's got all of the stones. And in that moment, at least it's not me! Wait, is it? Where is it? But in that moment, when he does that, and he pulls the gauntlet together, and he goes, "I am Iron Man," and he snaps, and that's
knowing what would happen to him.
of course he knew. He's smart enough to know. I'm sure there was a little bit of his mind where he was like, "I party
And
harder than
Strange, of
this."
course, knew too, and like, oh, you know, that's how it is.
Yeah, I'm okay with sacrificing him.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
totally
he
Doctor
had that
Strange's
kind
way.
of like, you know, doctor's.
Maybe he knows that he'll
detachment.
come back at some point.
Maybe. Yeah, he's seen all the different iterations.
So we have a question from the Aether, from the outside world. Who is more intelligent than Iron Man or Batman?
No, who is more intelligent out of the two?
Oh, who is more intelligent out of the two?
Oh, I think they have
Iron
different
Man.
levels. Of
No,
expertise.
that's just, no. Batman's psychotic.
Batman
Richards.
strategy. Batman has better strategy.
That wasn't an option. And it would
Batman-
definitely be his daughter, Valeria Richards, that's actually the smartest.
So,
one.
so there's different kinds of intelligence. You know, like you can't really like.
Yeah, but raw,
It's-
quantifiable intelligence, Tony Stark. If we're going off brains, Tony Stark.
You might say Tony Stark.
If we're going off kung fu, Bruce Wayne.
But then Tony Stark can just learn.
Well,
He's not Keanu Reeves. He is not that cool. He doesn't know how to just download kung fu.
Although he could just create the invention that allows him to.
He's actually the reason why there's robots in the Matrix.
Well, you know, it's like it can also be argued. It's like it just depends on really like what smarts we're talking about and stuff like that.
I don't think it does.
Inventing him, absolutely. The
I-
strategy.
Batman has book smarts.
I think it's Batman.
I don't
Strategy
think so.
against him.
He has strategic intelligence.
Well, I mean, he took down the Justice League by himself. Like he knew all their weaknesses and stuff like that and had backups, but that's just because he has a backup plan for a backup plan for another backup plan.
But even then, let's go back to how foresighted Tony Stark was when he collected the hair of the Odin son from his house
Mm-hmm.
after his first meeting with him and kept it until years later in the Civil War story arc
Mm-hmm.
when Iron Man and Captain America are going toe to toe. Who comes out to help aid Iron Man but a cloned Thor?
Yeah, I mean that's
Like, that's strategy that's years in advance. Like, Batman never cloned Superman. He never
but-
made Bizarre.
because it's wrong.
he didn't have to do
That's
that. He
why.
had
Kryptonite. But
Yeah,
there is no
kryptonite.
kryptonite for certain characters.
Batman would never
no, but he had.
create life just to, you know.
But he
for his
literally-
own- for his own.
He so would.
No.
And there's totally story arcs where he reclones himself every
What?
150 years so that Batman can live
What?
forever. Yeah,
Is that canon?
it's canon. Like,
What? Really?
It's totally
It's
canon.
gotten really crazy lately. It's really hard to keep up.
So
with
like
that.
I'm going for Batman.
Batman is
until
one
about
of
10
those
years ago.
characters that has the super ability that Superman also has, which is Rider. It's the Rider power.
Right.
So, can Superman move a planet? I don't know, but if this Rider says he can move a planet, he can.
I think
Can
we're
Superman
talking-
fly backwards
Yeah.
around the planet enough to change time?
we're gonna have to quantify these characters before comparing them.
Yeah.
I say
so you have
in
to
the
go with some
raw
sort of, like-
ability of Batman, if you put him in the real world, A, he's got some sort of mental disorder where he cannot stop. He doesn't sleep. He
gets
barely
at least-
eats, and
Has
yet
to,
has...
He totally eats. He gets 3,000
No,
calories a
the
day.
only person that makes him eat is Alfred Pennyworth.
And
So he barely eats, he barely sleeps, he's constantly thinking, and yet he only gets the grizzly face every once in a while and he shaves. So Alfred makes him shave or makes him sit down so he can shave him. Like basically Alfred is everything that Bruce Wayne needs to be a human.
I see that.
But his brain can only focus on what kung fu do I need to learn next, what deadly move is coming up next, what is the Joker doing. So he's only ever thinking about that stuff. But if he doesn't have Alfred, he is disabled.
I see that.
Completely disabled. If you
So,
remove
like,
a
wait,
Robin or an Alfred, Batman, Bruce Wayne loses. Now,
Well, what if
Tony,
you remove a Pepper?
if you remove a Pepper, but Pepper wasn't really as much a staple for Tony Stark in the comics as she was in the movies, but even if you did remove her, what's he going to do? He's going to drunkenly blast you away. Like, he's just going to drink a little vodka, clear in the morning, brown in the evening, you know, vodka to your whiskey,
I don't think I'm gonna
however
win
you have to do it.
this argument.
I'm just saying, he's going to get drunk, he's going to blast Batman away.
But Batman has.
But we're talking about
movies gonna do
intelligence. Even drunk, Iron Man's good.
Okay,
He's on
intelligence.
track.
So, Bruce Wayne is playing Tony Stark in a game of chess, and that's all they're doing. Who will win?
I think Batman would win that one. It's just because he's always obsessing about strategy and moves and stuff like that. But it wouldn't be hands down, it'd be really close.
I'd have to say Queen's Gambit for Iron Man. And, of course, you know what John's going to say? Tiebreaker. Victor Von Doom wins.
I don't know. Which
They didn't even know they were playing Chinese checkers with him. It was a three-way chess game.
No, Doom just walks up and
Three-dimensional.
shoots them both in the head.
He just shows up, kills them both. He's
Yeah.
like, I distracted them with the
It's a chess
chessboard.
game. I made them fight. each
Doom
other.
wins.
That's a good place.
I think that was a good question, though.
Yeah.
That was a good question. That really does take you certain places with it to try and think about the differences in their intelligence.
Also,
But
the way they go about.
I think that Iron Man and most of Marvel is kept more realistic, it's kept more balanced, and it's kept more capable
absolutely.
of understanding, whereas DC has the ability of saying, who is Batman? He is a demon bat god. When did that happen? Well, it happened after he traveled through time and existed in every single history there is. Oh,
So I'm not
what about
including-
his future?
I'm not including
Are we
that.
talking about Terry McGinnis, or are we talking about all the clones of Bruce Wayne that exist in the future? Wait, how much is going to happen
Yeah.
with this
My
guy?
Batman exists like from 1990 down.
I think that my Batman, if you really put it into a format that made sense, Batman only lives 8 to 10 years after
Oh, yeah.
announcing he's Batman.
Yeah, it's like 5-10 years.
He comes out and he's like, I'm Batman, and then
Well, like Chris Nolan's movie, like kind of played into that.
it really showed what would
Like,
happen.
because like yeah, someone going at it like at that level.
Because if he was so tactically smart, he'd build a suit of armor.
There you go.
He had one.
There you go. Tony Stark is smarter.
And did he
Batman
use it all the
should
time?
have done that.
No.
Well, it's like it showed like, what was it? In
Because he was critical
Batman,
in
in
the beginning of that movie.
And
well, Batman v Superman, like he had
he had
Not- not the-
face and armor.
not that armor. I'm talking about like the regular suit had armor under it.
Nano mesh that's supposed to be.
It's not like
Totally would
enhancing
have worked
strength,
if he had had like an actual Iron Man suit. That would. He should have called Tony Stark to have him build a suit for him, since he's so much smarter. Also, the reason why Iron Man wins is because who has played Iron Man? How many actors? One actor. That's all it took. He was that good at it. Out of all the Keatons and Kilmers and Clooneys and Pattinsons
Flex.
Not
and
yet.
Flex, nobody can ever be Batman because everybody has a different idea of what Batman is. But Iron Man is the epitome of, in my opinion, this is what Iron Man is. Iron Man is now an ideal. It's the ideal that if you commit yourself to something for 10 years, just for 10 years, you can not only change your own life, you can manifest a new destiny for yourself. You can create a new world that reaches out to so many people, that can touch so many different people, can prove to all of us, hey, we have hearts too. We see these things, we grow with these things. It influences the way that we make decisions in our lives. We can reflect upon those decisions that he's made in those movies, the drunken binge of Iron Man 2, or blowing up his collection for the woman he loves in Iron Man 3, to having his bro fights with his best friend in multiple Avengers movies. But if you commit yourself to an idea for just 10 years, you can
Just
change.
10 years.
Just 10 years.
10
Think about how
short
many
years.
10 years you've had. You've had at least 10
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, I was starting the first 10. And you get most of the stuff done.
I think the first 10 you're too distracted by, developing a brain.
The second 10.
The second 10 you're way too distracted by the opposite
The
sex and
first
alcohol.
20 years are the longest 20.
I say the third 10 years is where you can actually do something with yourself. But you have to devote yourself. So that way by the time you're like 45,
It's too late. It's too late.
it's too late.
Yeah, you might as well give up.
Don't listen to Doom.
Don't
Do not.
Listen to
Yes.
Tony. Devote yourself for 10 years to something. You can change your life. You can change your friends' lives. You can change the course of the world sometimes in these situations. Because think about how many people on this planet have been touched by the Marvel Cinematic Universe, by Robert Downey Jr.'s performance as Iron Man, and by the wonderful mythology that we've created for our modern era, our current gods, or our current heroes and hero arcs. And that's what I think really matters. These guys that put forth this idea, they stuck to it, they devoted themselves to it, and through that they gained a new sense of notoriety, of newfound dignity, of honor for themselves. And we can all do that. And I think that's the goal that Stan Lee originally had for all the true believers out there when he started writing these stories, all of these things for people. You can do anything. You just have to think about how you're going to do it. You have to devote yourself to it.
10 years.
Just 10 years.
And it's never too late. What's important is that you start.
Yeah, and you get back up. You start. You do it now.
Can we change it to 2 years?
No, because in 2 years you're getting nothing
You
done.
can do a lot in 2 years.
You'll progress to at least a new stage, but that's just a mini arc of who John McClay is. We're talking about the.
It's a
overall.
series of mini arcs. It's
We're talking about the overall.
a series of
It's
many
you
steps.
later.
Yeah,
We'll see you in 10 years.
2 years.
When I'm 45
Yeah.
and you're
That's 10 years.
old,
How old are you?
I'm 35. So in 10 years I'll be 45. So when I'm 45
I'm way old.
and you're like 50, crap.
10 years is too long.
Yeah.
2
And we
years.
got you in those cane and walking boots.
I'm already in the can. walking.
But it's okay. In that time, I'll look at you and I'll say, "What have you done?" And
I'll
you'll
be
be
like,
like,
"I have
"I
done nothing."
kind of forgot to devote
I
myself
was-
to anything."
I was like, I heard 10 years. I'm like, that's too long.
And I'm
then I was
sitting
like, 2
there
years,
in a
and
bench
you said
suit, and I'm a billionaire, and it's like,
Oh, if you're a billionaire, then like,
"Oh, I'll still just pay you to be around.
yeah, I'll be
You'll just
around.
be there.
Yeah, I'll be there.
I'll pay both of you just to be
Yeah.
there."
Yeah, I'll do that. 2
Like
years.
on my porch, this will be the way my front porch looks. There'll be cheesecake.
Yeah,
And there'll be cheesecake. He'll make the cheesecake.
Private
there will
gym.
be drawings because you will just sit
I'll do
there and
that.
draw all day.
I can do that.
That's all
I
I
can
do.
do that for 10 years.
Now, speaking of what some people devoted themselves to and in changing a whole idea of things, next week when you come back, I want to talk, or in 2 weeks, sorry, next episode when you come back to join us again, I want to talk about indie comics, independent comics. And one of the biggest, most renowned independent comics that came out was Image, in my opinion. Image Comics. led by one of their most notable characters, most widely recognized characters, which would be Spawn, created by Todd McFarlane.
Yes.
So I want to talk about that next week, and we will see you then at the same general time frame of Turn the Page on the same general channel. Thank you, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your grandmother, and force all your friends to watch. Join us next time.